Hello everyone. I'm very happy to see you all back on my channel. Today's story begins with the simplest things, yet opens up a turning point no one expected. The morning at Hoai's house was just like any other day. She busied herself preparing breakfast, calling the children to wake up, reminding them of every little thing. Eat quickly or you'll be late for school. Careful, it's hot. Don't get dirty. Familiar words, repeated actions, but all of it was love that she always gave to her children. Hùng stood there, quietly watching, not saying much, but his eyes followed every movement of Hoai Ca. He noticed the children's clothes had become too small at some point. He didn't wait for her to say anything. He simply spoke gently. I'll go to the market and buy the kids some new clothes. Nothing big, but enough to show he was trying to make up for the hardships that Hoai Ca had gone through. Life continued peacefully. Nil, a stranger appeared. A man stood at the gate, knocked on the door, his eyes hesitant, yet filled with determination. He introduced himself. His name was Long. He had just returned from abroad and came here to find Hoai Ca. No one understood why, until he began to speak about a story that had been unfinished for more than 20 years. A lost child, a family waiting, and a scar, the only trace left behind. Long shared that his younger sister had gone missing when she was very young. No one knew where she went. No one knew if she was still alive. Only the memory of a scar on her arm had never faded. And then, when he heard his grandfather mention Hoai, a girl living on her own, with no clear background, with a life story so similar, and especially with a scar just like that, he could not stay still. He had to come. He had to see for himself. While waiting for Hoai Ca to return, Long spoke with Hùng. The more he heard, the more silent he became. A girl, without a family, without childhood memories, who had wandered, who had endured countless hardships, then raised her children alone, step by step rebuilding her life. Everything matched in an unsettling way. When Hoai Ca finally returned, the meeting happened without noise, without drama, but the atmosphere became heavy. Long looked at her for a long time, not just looking, but searching for something familiar that had been lost long ago. He asked to see the scar. Hoai Ca was slightly surprised, but still held out her hand. That moment, all eyes focused. The scar appeared in the exact position, with the same shape, so similar that no one dared to say it was just coincidence. But a scar alone was not enough to conclude. Long suggested a DNA test, not out of doubt, but because he needed certainty, an answer for a family that had waited for 20 years. Hoai Ca did not object, but because she was busy with work, she couldn't go with him. In the end, she gave Long a few strands of her hair for him to take for testing. A simple decision, yet carrying within it an entire future ahead. Long left, not just a simple step away from a familiar place, but carrying within him a mix of emotions, hope, anxiety, and something too difficult to name. He didn't say much, didn't look back, just walked quietly, as if slowing down for even a second would shake his determination. That moment, there was only one thing in his mind, one single goal: to find the truth he had chased for so many years, the truth he once believed might never have an answer. But today, he was very close to it, very close. At the provincial hospital, there was no hesitation.
No complicated properaschen.
Long almost walked straight in, and immediately sought out someone he knew. No long explanations, no need to say much, just one look, a hurried voice. was enough for the other person to understand this matter could not be delayed. He requested the test as fast as possible, fast enough to bypass the usual procedures. And then he sat down in a quiet corner along the hallway under cold white lights, with footsteps passing endlessly. But none of those sounds seemed to reach him anymore. Long sat there, hands clasped together, eyes fixed forward, but his thoughts were far away. Time passed, but not the way it normally did. Second was no longer small, but stretched, heavy, slow, as if testing his patience. Every minute felt like a reminder that the answer was so close, yet still out of reach. Long did nothing, didn't check his phone, didn't stand up, didn't move. He just sat there, holding still, as if any movement would push the result further away. In his mind, old memories began to surface. The times he searched without results, the moments he thought he was close, only to lose it again. The hopes that once ignited, then quietly faded into silence. And because of that, this time, he didn't dare to hope too much, didn't dare to think too far ahead. He just waited, just wanted to see a clear conclusion, not vague, not uncertain. And then, after everything, that moment came. Someone approached, holding a sheet of paper, not long, not filled with many words, but carrying the weight of an entire journey. The paper was placed right in front of him. Long looked at it, but didn't immediately reach out, as if, in that brief second, he needed a little more time to prepare for what was coming. Then he took it. His eyes moved across each line, slowly, carefully, missing nothing. And just one line, one single line, was enough. Biological relationship confirmed. No doubt, no error, no room left for speculation.
Hoai Ca
Was his sister. That moment, there was no sound, no explosive reaction, just a deep stillness. Long stood there, the paper still in his hand, but everything around him seemed to stop. All those years, all those searches, all those unanswered questions, all of it came together in that single moment. It wasn't loud joy, but an emotion rising, slowly, yet powerfully. His eyes trembled slightly, not out of fear, but because, finally, he had his answer. An answer he had waited for so long. Long tightened his grip on the paper, not to hold on to it, but to feel it more clearly, that this wasn't a dream, that everything was real. He wanted to go back immediately.
No hesitaste.
No more thinking. He just wanted to stand in front of her, to see her, to call out something so simple. Little sister. Call? He had never had the chance to say, for all those years. In his mind, that moment was vivid. The moment they faced each other, the moment misunderstandings and distance would disappear. But right then, his phone vibrated. The sound wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Long froze, looked down at the screen. An unfamiliar number. But he answered. Come home immediately. The voice on the other end was no longer calm, no longer steady. It was urgent, so urgent, each word felt broken. Grandfather, something happened. Just one sentence. Short, but enough to turn everything upside down. Long stood still. Didn't ask more. Didn't need explanations. Because he understood. This situation allowed no delay. In that brief moment, he stood between two choices. One side was the truth he had just found. The other was an emergency calling him back. And then there was no long hesitation. He turned around, walked faster, then faster still, out of the hospital, into his car. The engine started, heading in the opposite direction, not where he wanted to go, but where he had to go. The road ahead felt longer than ever. The test result, still in his hand, like proof that what he had searched for finally had an answer. But he couldn't follow his heart, couldn't return immediately, couldn't stand before her and tell the truth, couldn't call her by the name he had longed to say. Everything stopped suddenly, right before it could begin, and behind him, a truth was still waiting to be spoken, but for now, had to remain silent. Back at home, everything remained in its familiar quiet. Nothing sudden happened, no obvious changes, just each moment continued to pass silently, the way it always had. Hoai Ca was still there, still within her familiar space, where every corner, every object, she still took care, still paid attention to every small detail, things that seemed ordinary, yet filled most of her thoughts. From what needed to be prepared, to what needed to be arranged, everything was kept steady, as long as everything around her didn't change, then inside her, nothing would be disturbed. She lived as she always did. No one looking at her could notice anything different. No clear abnormality, no unusual expression. Just that, deep inside, something was slowly forming, feeling very light, very hard to name. Not quite worry, not exactly joy, but something in between, fake, yet impossible to ignore. Within her, there had begun a sense of waiting. No clear reason, no defined moment, yet it existed. A waiting, unclear, unspoken, but repeating in every small moment. Sometimes, while working, while everything seemed normal, she would suddenly pause. Not because she was tired, not because she forgot, but simply a very brief pause. Then her gaze, unconsciously, turned toward the gate. There was no sound, no sign of anything, yet she still looked. A glance, not long, but enough for someone to notice that she was waiting for something, for someone that even she was not certain about. Moments like that did not happen just once, but repeated many times in a day, short but consistent, like a new habit, quietly forming, without her even realizing it. And then, she would return to her work, continuing as if nothing happened. But that feeling did not disappear. It remained, silent, gentle, but persistent.
Hùng noticed
Every small detail. He didn't need to ask, didn't need her to say anything. Just observing was enough to understand. He recognized that subtle change, even though it wasn't obvious, not easy to see. Those fleeting glances, those brief pauses, those moments she unconsciously looked outside, none of it escaped his eyes. But he didn't ask, not because he didn't care, but because he understood. There are things that don't need to be questioned. There are emotions that, if named too early, would become heavier. And there are answers that, even if deeply desired, still need the right time. Hung simply stayed beside her, not interfering, not interrupting, not breaking that quiet, just being there. Presence, not too obvious, but enough to bring comfort. He kept everything in a steady state, still doing what needed to be done, still maintaining the familiar rhythm, so that I would not have to worry about anything more, so she could continue within the peace she still had. Because he knew, not everything needs to be known immediately, not everything needs to be understood fully. Sometimes, it is enough to wait for a moment when everything will become clear on its own. One person already knew the truth, a truth that was clear, without doubt, without any gaps, but still could not be spoken. Another person was still waiting, not knowing exactly what she was waiting for, but still feeling that something was drawing near. Two people, two different states, yet existing at the same intersection. The distance between them was not far, just one step, one word, and they could reach each other. But that distance could not be shortened, not because they didn't want it, but because an unexpected event, something that came without warning, had intervened at the very moment when everything seemed close to clarity, forcing everything to pause. No one spoke of it, no one foresaw it, but it happened, and it held back a truth, held back a sentence, held back a moment that could have changed everything. Time continued, but the waiting grew longer, longer, heavier, clearer. A truth already confirmed, but still unspoken. Feeling already forming, but still unanswered. Will long return in time before everything becomes too late? Will he stand before Hoai and tell her everything before those events pull him further away? And Hoai, will she truly find her family after more than 20 years of emptiness and unanswered questions? Or perhaps, just when everything seems so close, fate, once again, sets another challenge. Not loud, not violent, but enough to slow down everything. Turning point is forming. An answer is waiting to be spoken. But will it come in time, or continue to be delayed? Stay tuned for the next episode.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình đưa đến với mọi người video về câu chuyện của Ly Hoai Ca và Hùng nha mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì đã xem video của mình. Và ở trong video hôm nay thì Hoài Ca và Hùng có gặp thêm một người, đó là anh Long. Anh Long thì là một người ở nước ngoài về, sau khi học xong cấp 3 thì anh đã đi nước ngoài. Và anh cũng có một người em gái bị thất lạc qua lời nói của ông thầy dạy thuốc, tức là cái ông ngoại của kia. Thì anh biết được là Hoài Ca có vết bớt giống em gái của mình và nghi ngờ đây là em gái của mình. Vì thế anh đã tìm đến để có thể xin tóc của cô để đem đi xét nghiệm. Vậy thì liệu kết quả sẽ ra sao? Hãy cùng đón xem những phần tiếp theo để biết thêm chi tiết câu chuyện nhé mọi người. Mình cảm ơn mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong video sau. Bye bye.